Hey guys, Pete over here. So super excited to share this trip. This is one of the first videos that we are shooting, road trip journey. We're in the middle of January, so it's pretty cold. We're in the middle of Michigan State, which is called Pure Michigan. I love that. Look how much snow you can see in a distance. So we are about to pull up to Unknown. This is a collector who's gonna have a lot of gaming stuff, retro gaming, pinball machines, things like that. So I'm super excited to see what's gonna happen there, or if we're gonna be able even to buy anything from him. But I'm super excited on this first episode, and I hope you guys are too. Let's dive into this. Wow, look how much snow they got here. I mean, comparing to us by Chicago, we got nothing. We got at least a foot of snow, if not more here. So looks like a winter wonderland for sure. Beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I don't think they plow a whole lot here, you know? I might have to put my four-wheel drive. We're definitely in the middle of nowhere. Oh, look at all the cows. Look at them. Is that organic food walking around? I feel like a little kid. I swear to God, I feel like a little kid. Man, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. I love this thing. Hey guys, Pete over here. So I'm here on our first trip, guys, in the middle of nowhere in Michigan. I'm gonna say that. We're gonna leave it at that. Snowed in Michigan. I think you got almost like 2 feet of snow. It looks that way, you know.
I felt like it's shoveling it.
So I'm here with Kelly. Kelly, thank you for having us over here. Appreciate it. And Ethan, Kelly's son. This is like your little heaven here, right? Because this is all retro gaming stuff going way back before we go digital. We got pinball machines here, so this is unbelievable. Now, most of these are all original except one here that you have that it's a newer one, right?
Yes, that Godzilla was a brand new game just made last year. But most of these are from the early 90s to the mid 80s.
Now the one that I just played, you know, the Swords of Fury, is this like the very classic one when it comes to all of these, like most desirable, or which one?
It's a more rare game, but it isn't necessarily the most desirable.
Okay.
It's kind of obscure. Wasn't a successful game for them, not hugely successful.
Okay.
So they didn't make as many of them. A lot of these got sent overseas, so you don't see them too much in the United States anymore.
So how many they made, like when it came out?
I believe it was around 2,500 to 2,800.
That's really
total,
small, yeah.
Which is a pretty low production run to get all the tooling and all of the custom ramps and everything made. So it's a little more obscure of a game. But really fun if you like the 80s.
So out of all of these, which one is your favorite, right? I mean, we got Demolition Man.
Yep.
With Sylvester Stallone.
It's a little too modern to be my favorite, but
High Speed.
Yep.
What year is that? Is that mid 80s?
1986.
Yeah.
This came out. Definitely, this is my era. Mid 80s to early 90s is the era.
Is the license plate on that card says Kingpin? Yeah. Is that from the movie?
No.
Kingpin? No, or has that got different meaning?
This is made from Steve Ritchie designed this game. He's a famous pinball designer. He's still in the business right now. And the idea he had for this game was actually from him in being in a high-speed chase with the police. Back in the 80s, he drove, I don't believe it was a Ferrari, I think it was a Porsche. But this is the idea that he had for this game. He didn't realize they were chasing him. He was doing over 100 miles an hour.
Really?
And he got the idea for high speed from that experience.
So was this a high production
unit?
Made a lot of these?
I'm going off memory, but I want to say it's at least 15,000.
Okay, so huge maybe. Comparing to this.
Yes, it was a hugely popular game. Most of these you see are in very bad condition because they were played so much. And this is before they used automotive clear coat on the playfield, so a lot of times the paint would just be worn right off of
So
it.
when you got this one, was it functional or do you?
It was functional, it just didn't look anything like this.
Really?
Yes, it was very dim, very dirty.
So do
I do a lot
you
of
do any of the work yourself on these?
Absolutely.
Or? Okay.
Yep. Everything has to be taken off. All of these ramps, all the wire forms, all of the targets, all the posts, all the rubbers, everything has to be taken off.
And you help your
and
dad too?
replaced. Yeah, he watches. He waits for me to be done so he can plan.
Yeah, especially on the vampire, was Dracula?
Dracula, which I've sold. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a lot of work, but it's really the only way to make them reliable and get them to playing the way that they played when they came from the factory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, they can get pretty slow.
So which one is your favorite then?
Probably this Black Knight 2000. This is the second game I ever owned. I owned one game before this, and I traded a guy named Steve locally who still is in the business of restoring games, and he traded me this for, it was a Judge Dredd, a Bally Judge Dredd.
So what year is that machine?
This is a 1989, also a Steve Ritchie design game.
Okay.
You either are going to do it or you're not. The game's going to be over very quickly. I don't want to play a pinball machine for 20, 30, 45 minutes.
Right.
You're either going to get there or you're not. And this is actually the only game Steve Ritchie ever put out a tuning guide for. In addition to the manual, he released himself a separate guide on how to set this game up properly to play the way he intended. But yeah, it's just a classic game. I love it. I love the soundtrack. I love the gameplay. You know, dual level play field. Just a classic.
Yeah, very
classic
cool.
Pinball machine.
I mean, when I obviously went through high school, through mid-80s, right? So we had a couple places by our high school filled with these machines. You know, lunch break, you're running out of school, you're playing the pinball machines. So this stuff is like, for me, it brings so much memories.
A lot of people remember playing them. Yeah.
And then obviously in the mid-80s, a little bit of digital era comes into these games that are right behind you. You know, the Coleco, the Atari shows up. Finally, lots of different cartridges, lots to choose from. So let's dive into that side now. So now this is more digital era that we're getting into, but first you got the little handhelds unit
Home
here.
console, yep.
And I know some of them, these are, I call them repops, newer releases, but you do have some original ones. I remember my, Donkey Kong that I used to play
LCD
back
games,
1983 or 84, I want to say, something like that.
Yep.
So those are very desirable if you find the original ones.
Before all the Game Boy and all that came out, this is what you had.
I'm almost comparing this back in the day of what iPhone or smartphone is doing right now, that you were kind of hooked on it.
Yep.
When I was 13 years old in the back seat of the car, this was the game that I was playing, like, nonstop. I was playing in bed. I was playing, when the teacher was looking at me, like, so yeah, this is the cool era here. So
definitely.
And then some of these are obviously newer system.
Yeah,
but like
this is
Turbo Express. Talk to me about this.
So Turbo Express is a portable version of the NEC TurboGrafx 16, which was not a popular console in the United States. It's the American version of the Japanese PC Engine, which was hugely popular. NEC went ahead and they saw the video game boom. Nintendo was doing amazing. Sega was doing great. They wanted to get into the home console market in the United States, so they released the TurboGrafx 16, and a couple years later, I believe in 90 or 91,
so the main system flopped, and then they released this, and this also kind of flops, right?
Yeah, this was kind of the Switch, the Nintendo Switch of its day, because the unique thing about this, and both of these, is that these play the same games as the home console does. This plays Sega Genesis games, this plays TurboGrafx 16 games, so those same games that you had for your home console, you could just take with you and plug right into a portable unit.
Overall, brilliant idea, right?
Yeah, it was a little ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And the main downfall with a lot of these is battery life. It's 2 hours, 3 hours maybe is what you would get. So parents gravitated towards the Game Boy a lot more. And there were some other issues there with licensing that made the Game Boy a lot more popular than these consoles.
But from what I understand, this is your go-to thing to collect now, right?
Yeah, the Turbo Express, it's the first portable console that ever had an active matrix LCD screen. They were hugely expensive at that time.
How much was it back in the day?
I believe when it first came out, it retailed at $299. And
that's a lot of money back then.
Yeah, and imagine it's about $700 now in today's money.
Yeah.
And you got to factor in the batteries because you're going to be going through them like crazy.
Yeah.
But it was on the cutting edge. You got a much better, clearer screen on that than you would have on, say, your Game Boy, even a Game Gear, even an Atari Lynx, because it was an active matrix display, which was hugely expensive at the time. And they had a massive failure rate. So pretty obscure, but a really fun console to own. And that's complete.
Do you have any cartridges?
Absolutely, yeah, they're stacked up over there.
Okay, so as we move along here.
Yeah, they're over on the other side. But this is also, this Lynx is factory sealed. You will not see very many of these, period, much less one that was factory sealed.
What year is that?
This Lynx came out in 1989.
89, okay.
Was originally developed by a company called Epix in 1987, and then they licensed the technology to Atari. This was purchased from a gentleman who owns the rights to a lot of this Atari
it's
stuff.
pristine.
Yeah, it was bought, like this guy literally bought the warehouse. When Atari was going bankrupt the first time, they had huge stockpiles of inventory, massive, and nobody cared. It was all, the crash happened in '83.
If we only knew, right? If we only knew.
They had warehouses full. And he bought an entire warehouse, so I bought it directly from this gentleman who has a really like old school website.
So what does something like this go for these days? In this condition, sealed like that?
Sealed like that, just like anything else, it's going to be more if it's graded.
Right.
It isn't graded, so probably like that, you're looking at maybe $1,200 to $1,500.
Okay. You grade, you get 9.5.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
could double,
probably
triple.
4,000 or 5,000.
Really?
Something like that.
Okay.
It's very obscure.
And then I see you got a bunch of games here too, so some of them are sealed as well.
The interesting thing about the Lynx is that most of what you find, if you go on eBay now, you will find sealed games because they still had so much inventory left that nobody really cared about.
Never really went out to the made it to the shelves.
Precisely. So you find those games, the odds are you're going to be buying a brand new sealed copy, which is kind of unusual. Most consoles do not work that way.
Yeah.
Sealed usually is much more expensive. Some of these games can still be had for $20, $30 sealed. So they're not necessarily super valuable, but I'm a collector, so it's tough for me to open them.
Oh, of course.
And I'm like, how bad do I want to play it?
So as we move on here, I'm seeing a pretty big collection of Sega stuff. As far as games go, is this something that you like the most? Because by looking at what you have, obviously you got a lot of NES here too, but
a lot of variety.
A lot of Sega stuff.
Yeah, when I was a kid, it was the console my parents bought for me, one of the first consoles brand new from the store that I got, and I just have a huge amount of nostalgia for it.
So it's deep down, this is your go-to.
Absolutely, yeah, and buying up all the games I couldn't afford.
But I don't see many of Nintendo 64 here. You have few.
Not a huge.
Not many.
Not a big focus of my collection.
And the reason behind that is because you focus kind of more on that.
My main thing is sprite-based, old school 2D artwork that was drawn by somebody and then digitized. When you start getting into early polygon games, early 3D games, they're not really that well, they don't hold up visually that well necessarily. It was early days for polygons and 3D gaming. And at that time, Nintendo 64 was revolutionary. I mean, they had some amazing stuff, but a lot of it just looked kind of washed out, smeared, blurry. There was a lot of issues in those growing years of 3D gaming, whereas these games, these 16-bit, 8-bit games, the best of them hold up beautifully.
And I know us talking about this at this moment, we're opening little can of worms here. I can see the comments already, right? Because there's some lovers of
Absolutely.
and
yeah.
they'll be like, "No, you're wrong. This is better."
Going to be, and it's down to hugely what you grew up with.
Exactly.
You know, and the N64 that came out in '96. Now you're looking at people who are in their late 20s, 30s.
Yeah.
They remember playing that game. It's their first console. Of course, they're going to want to go back to it. And there's a ton of amazing games on the Nintendo 64.
There's a lot. Yeah.
Definitely you can't just pigeonhole the whole thing. But I just love the aesthetic of 2D pixel art graphics.
That's why I love like the Atari, 2600.
Yep.
And some of the first games that I programmed on Commodore 64. The real basics.
You put in the basic games. You programmed them.
And you record on a tape, right? You screwed up one thing, it doesn't work. You gotta sit down, redo the whole thing, find a mistake. So there's definitely nostalgia there. So as we move through this here.
So you've got PS1, NES, Super Nintendo. Yep.
Out of those three, is this still your favorite? Or
Sega's always going to hold a special place in my heart, but I don't discriminate. There's a ton of amazing games on Nintendo, a ton of amazing Super Nintendo games, amazing PlayStation games. I mean, there's just too much to just stick to one console. Really, I've never been a fanboy for just one thing.
Yeah.
There's so much to appreciate. And a lot of things didn't come out necessarily. Some games came out on all consoles, at the time. Other games were exclusive. Maybe you only got it on the Sega Genesis, or you only got it on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
It's a library. I consider it a library. I don't try to play everything, but I'll just come and take something randomly down and appreciate it for
and I like
bit.
it that you got it set up right there, that we'll get to it eventually.
It's a working collection.
you have a little TV, 13-inch or whatever. Is it smaller?
That's a little 13-inch.
13-inch, and you got all these system hookup. You can grab any game, boom, and just
and I'm
go
up and
at
running.
it. Yep. And then in between, we're finding this. This is my true passion. Typical 70s receiver from Sansui here. So this is great. In between this, you got some of this, vintage stuff. There's more receivers on this side.
I've always appreciated them. The build quality.
The build quality, the look. Is just and
they just don't make them like that anymore.
It's just amazing. I love that part.
They really do.
Now, when I turn around here, let's come over here for a second. I talked to you about before we started shooting. I had this a few years back, and I told you what I sold it for. And you're like, "Oh my gosh, you gave it away!"
But I would have bought all you had for that price. I guarantee it right now. But it's very unique.
It's the only time I had this in my shop. Never again came in. So it's I'm assuming it's harder and harder to find these.
Very obscure. Came out, I believe, in '83, released by Milton Bradley, which is not a company that's very much known for releasing home video game consoles. And it's unique because it's a vector monitor, which plots points of light that at the time in the early '80s you just couldn't do with traditional sprite-based graphics. A lot of 3D things can be done.
And the games almost look like they're almost like Atari, maybe a tiny bit smaller than Atari games.
Yeah, a little bit smaller.
How was this system that was very long-lived, or not really, right? So there's not many games, I'm assuming, overall for this.
It's a pretty small library, and they don't command a ton of money necessarily. There are a few that do. The console itself does, because it's pretty obscure in and of itself. But it was affected, just like everything at the early '80s, by the crash. There was an enormous video game crash in 1983. Everybody just decided, we had all these games coming in for Atari, all these ColecoVision games, and there was no quality control. So they didn't have to get a Nintendo seal of quality or anything to release it. They could just get a program a game,
just pump
and ship it out. They could say anything they wanted on the box, even if it was misleading, and consumers eventually got tired of it, and they're like, you know what? The market just went
straight down
into the toilet. And at that time, a lot of companies went out of business. Most companies making games went out of business at that time. And that was affected by that for certain, and didn't come back until the Nintendo, really, a couple years later. It's a classic system with a lot of games that are exclusive. You can't play those games on anything other than
Is this one fully functional?
Vectrex. Yeah, I believe so. It's probably been it's been a number of years since I plugged it and turned it on, but it was the last time I plugged it in. Yeah, they're pretty reliable for an old piece of electronics, but I'd hate to find out I was wrong.
Turbo 16, that's pretty pristine box too.
This is a pristine box because this was actually a re-release.
Oh,
so
okay,
a few years ago, this got really popular. All these here are mini consoles that were re-released over the last decade or so. And the TurboGrafx is a more obscure one that was, I think it was only available on Amazon. Came out maybe 2018, 2019, something like that. And it's just got maybe, a collection, a certain amount, 30, 40 games from the original console.
So the original one that you have up there, do you have a box for that one too? You do?
Yes, that's sitting on top of the
And how many games were available for that system back in the day? Was there a big selection or?
Not in the US. In the US, it's a very limited. I hesitate to say exact numbers because I'm probably wrong, but it's in the like maybe 150 something like that for in the US. Now that is a localization of a console called the PC Engine, which was released in Japan in 1987 and was massively popular. There's a ton of games available for that, but they're not compatible with the US version of the system.
So that was only in Japan?
Only in Japan, yeah. You can get a converter. They're kind of expensive, but you can get a converter that will plug into your US system and allow you to play those games on your US system. But of course, they're mostly going to be in Japanese.
Yeah.
So it depends on the game how workable that is. Yeah. But it's a great console. So many great games came out, and only a tiny fraction of the really good ones came out here in the US because it just wasn't popular. The Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis, those dominated in the early 90s, and people looked at the TurboGrafx like it was just, that's
so
At
this moment, is this the most thing that you're going after?
Man, there's really just odds and ends at this point. There's like a couple games here, I'm looking for one console. It's mostly complete as far as what I want to own.
Okay.
But if I saw anything TurboGrafx 16, I'd be interested because you just don't see it.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to find that stuff here in the US because people just didn't. I was included. I'm like, what is that junk? I have a Sega Genesis. That thing's trash.
Yeah.
But it's really an amazing console. Yeah.
So we're moving on, and now we're looking at all the systems kind of set up here that you got on display.
Yep.
And it struck me right away, and I talked to you earlier, was this system that Jaguar. I had about a year ago, the Jaguar, in my shop, but with that CD drive on top.
Very rare. I don't have one, but they're incredibly difficult to keep working.
Yeah.
You're very lucky.
Mine was fully functional.
And you sold it as functional, because I almost promise you it isn't functional now.
I think I sold it too cheap after our discussion, maybe, but
they're very difficult to get working. Yes.
And then on top, I'm seeing all the cartridges for the Atari there.
My first love.
Your first
Atari
love,
2600.
My first love too.
Yeah.
When I came to US in 1984, this was the system, and I had a very close friend of mine who is very close till this day. He got this system, and I was like fresh off the boat, and I got into his house, and it's like, oh my gosh, what is this?
Yeah.
So there's a game that I have. I don't collect any gaming stuff, but this is that one game that I loved playing back in 84 and 85, and I'm going to describe it to you, and I want to see if you have it here.
Okay, all right.
And I want to see if you know what it is. So you take off in a plane, but you constantly flying over the river, and you shooting at ships that are coming at you and planes that are coming at you. And it's a level after level, gets harder and harder and harder, of course.
It sounds like you're describing River Raid.
Gosh, you got it. My favorite game.
Yeah.
So I have that game with a pristine box. That's the only thing from my childhood, and a little handheld Nintendo. We talked about it at the beginning.
Game & Watch.
Yes.
Yeah. The LCD game. Yeah.
So,
it's a
but
classic.
yeah, it's I saw it here.
It's up there somewhere. River Raid, right up there.
Yep. Right there. Yep.
Classic Activision game.
Classic. Classic Loveday. Played for hours. Like, I remember till this day, that would be like
It was, and those games.
1 o'clock in the morning. What is Peter still doing at my house? My friend's mother
Playing
would
River
say.
Raid. Yeah.
Just
And that's a popular genre, the overhead
Yeah.
shooter, and that was one of the predecessors, one of the first ones. Activision, really talented guys. They were all ex-Atari employees that were fed up with the way Atari was running their business at that time. So Atari had a corporate structure that wouldn't allow content creators they wouldn't be recognized. They wouldn't let them put their initials on it. They wouldn't let River Raid by whoever created it. They were like, no, you work for us. We put the games out. You're just an employee. And they couldn't.
No recognition,
There was
zero.
no recognition for their creativity, their artistry.
Wow.
And so they're like, fine, we'll go make our own company. And they formed Activision, which is still a huge company today.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was a really new thing for creators to be able to say, look, this is who's putting this game out. And so that was one of their big initiatives when they started Activision was, no, we're going to recognize the creators of these games. We're going to have their names prominently displayed on them. And Activision put out some of the best Atari games ever.
Yeah.
There's a huge list of classic Atari 2600 games from Activision.
I brought you something here that I
I've
don't
heard.
see a system here. Maybe it's here. I just maybe don't see it.
I'm curious.
It's a game that you might have seen on one of my videos. It's a while back. I bought the whole system
Okay.
with the game from this lady. Atari 5200. Is it here?
Yes, I do have Atari 5200s. They're so large.
They're big. They're big
yeah.
systems.
Even if I put one on display here, it would just hang over.
I know.
It's so
huge,
enormous.
and it's an
Yes.
enormous system.
And when we get into the stuff that I'm looking to maybe sell, you'll probably see one. I think I have 2 of them in a box. I don't have a complete boxed one, and there's a reason for that. It's not one of my favorite consoles to collect for. It's not because it doesn't have good games. It's because the controllers are horrendous. They're horrible. It was
Yeah.
one of the worst design decisions they ever made. It's an analog controller that doesn't self-center. So in other words, you put the stick over, that stick just stays
Wow.
wherever it was. And they
So
were
you had to
very
physically
unreliable.
kind of bring it back
Yes,
to make it okay.
and they were hugely unreliable and had massive problems with them. But it's a fun console. It does have some really good games.
Yep. So here's that game that I brought you. It's maybe not huge, but it's
Pac-Man.
sealed. It's original Pac-Man,
wow.
and I'm
for
not
resale.
sure if that actually came with the system.
Sure.
Probably did. It
this-
was part of
I would
when
think
you
this
bought
would
it.
have.
It was inside the box.
Wow, still sealed.
This is still sealed. So
Beautiful.
I know you're not a big into 52. I don't see many games, and I don't see the console. But this is
Sure.
sealed. I
No,
think it will look cool in your
you giving me
collection
this?
here. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Like I said, I
This
came
is-
bearing gifts because
This is great. Anything sealed, I mean, this is classic. It's in beautiful shape, and I think you're right because this is not for resale.
Yeah, I think so.
that
It was part of
it's
the
almost
bundle.
certainly would have been bundled
sure.
in an Atari 5200.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So
this is great.
Whoever's buying now the system from me doesn't have that game inside because you have it.
Right? You have the boxed console still?
Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
I do.
Well, I really
It's
appreciate
not
it.
an easy system to sell. Let's put it
No,
this way.
it doesn't have a huge following.
It doesn't.
Like I said, that was released the year that I described, 1983, when everything
Everything went down.
right down. Yeah,
So-
but I mean, it's still, this is a beautiful piece, beautiful condition, and I really appreciate it. Thank you
Yeah,
so
you're
much.
very welcome. You're
That's
very
great.
welcome.
I love this. I will definitely put this prominently right up there with my other box. I do have some boxed Atari games up there in the corner, so great.
Cool,
Thank
cool.
you very much.
Like almost the first, I would say, flat screens kind of TVs, right, back in the day, but
Yep.
it's still CRTV, right?
Well, so this is towards the end of the CRT era, which
Okay.
was early aughts, right around 2003, 2004. That's when the last of these TVs were really rolling off the line. And at that point, they were all mostly flat screens like you see
Yeah.
here. But yeah, it's still a CRT, all the same technology going bell
When
to
I
back.
get like a Sony on this side, I can't keep it in stock. I mean, gamers love
Mm-hmm. Yep.
it. And it goes
Absolutely.
for crazy money. You know,
Yes.
the 13 and 19 inch, and it's
Well,
like,
and it makes sense because if you're in a modern house, you got your modern TV, you want a 35-inch CRT, where are you going to put it?
Yeah,
It weighs a ton.
A ton.
It's going to be very difficult to move
Yeah.
it. So something like this, you can have in your little game room. Content looks great on these smaller screens.
Look how sharp it looks.
Yeah, it's most of these are connected through component
So
video.
this is 1982?
1992.
92.
Yep, Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu. Pretty obscure game when it was released in the United States, but absolute classic. Great soundtrack, really fun.
And
Yeah.
that's on
TurboGrafx.
TurboGrafx.
16. This is a little arcade stick for it that I picked up a few years ago. Really good game. And the easy way to play these is, this is actually an EverDrive. So what I have plugged in here is essentially, you plug a little SD card with the ROMs in it, and you can have the whole library. You don't have to
Yeah,
search for
you
these
don't have
obscure
to-
games, and you can play it on actual hardware.
That's cheating.
I know. It's not my favorite, but with this, when my entire collection is that one stack up there, it's
Right.
the only way to experience a lot of the collection. As I said, a lot of it only came out in Japan.
Yeah.
So unless you're willing to import those games and get a converter,
So
you know.
if you would have to hunt this game just to get a physical game,
Yeah.
what does it go for?
So the TurboGrafx, the thing about it is, they came in cardboard sleeves. They have,
Those.
they look like this, like a CD case, but this is not the entire game. I made a compromise, and this is how I collect them, because it still displays really nicely. It's got the manual and everything, but you'll notice there's no artwork on the back.
No.
Because they originally came in a cardboard sleeve. Now, everybody threw those cardboard sleeves out.
Yeah,
they
of
just
course.
threw them away.
Yeah, they
you know,
just
what do you
threw 'em
need it
away.
for? So they're very difficult to get complete. It's this game, in the complete in the sleeve, I would probably guess you're looking at around 400.
Really?
Something like that, yeah. This is like maybe 250.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's very, unless you're talking about
I
low-end sports
definitely
games
learned
and stuff.
something because,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, maybe once a while ago I had few games come in. They just don't show up.
They're just, people
so
who have
hard to
them
find,
are
you know?
holding on to them, and they just weren't sold much. They just
Yeah.
did not sell well here in the United States. You know, this probably was clearance at Toys R Us for $4.99 at one point because nobody cared.
Nobody cared,
wanted
yeah.
them. And it's interesting because they look like CDs, but they're actually these little plastic, it's called a HU card.
Yeah.
It's a little ROM.
Looks like an ID or something.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
but that's the way I collect them, just to kind of keep costs down, because getting them with the sleeves is just insane.
No, that's awesome. And then, of course, we're getting all the sounds behind us.
Yes, it's very
So
festive.
80s here. So 80s here. So what's the story with this machine? This is kind of side by side here. You don't
a
see
little
stuff like
unusual.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, so this I got from a guy locally. This is a Neo Geo system, which was a very popular arcade system in the early 90s. They put out a lot of fighting games, a lot of shooting games, and they were, this was never produced by them, this cabinet. This is made by a company called Dynamo, which would make generic arcade cabinets for manufacturers to put their games into.
So this holds a lot of games, right? Or
Well, the Neo Geo hardware itself is designed, if I open this up, what you'll see, so it's almost like a home console. So this was a way to get operators, you know, they're trying to make money, they're trying to keep costs down. You got a cabinet in an arcade. Do you want to move the whole thing out and put a whole new one in, versus just buying this from a manufacturer? You buy a new cartridge just like you would a home console, plug it in, you put a new marquee, some new signing, a little bit of different stickers,
Boom, you got a new
and you got
system.
you got a new game. Exactly. So that's the Neo Geo system kind of in a nutshell. This is unusual because they never released a cocktail Neo Geo. Dynamo released this cabinet, and I don't think they sold very many. I've seen very few games in this kind of cabinet with these controls both on one side. It's very unusual in a cocktail cabinet. Normally the controls would be there.
Yeah,
and there
opposite sides.
You'd be
You're
playing
sitting
opposite.
Exactly.
But with this style of game, they needed to be both on one side. So I just thought it was really cool. What's in this is a multi-cart. So this is an aftermarket cartridge that has, I think, maybe around 150 Neo Geo games that you can just select from, and you can play whatever you like. But
and these are all fighting games?
Mostly fighting games is what Neo Geo was known for. A lot of shooting games. There's some fun sports games like Neo Turf Masters. There's a little bit of variety, but they're mainly known for their fighting
Are they
games.
still in existence? Does the company still exist? or-
SNK, yes.
Yeah.
SNK is the ones who put that out. They're still a pretty big company in Japan, but they've been out of the hardware business since about, I think the last Neo Geo game was released in 2004. Had a good run. It started in, I think, 91, 1990 maybe, was the first Neo Geo. And they also released a home version of this, which is incredibly expensive and very difficult to collect for. Because it's literally the same hardware. It's the same arcade board that you would get in this with very similar looking cartridges. They're not compatible between the two, but it's the same game. And those games would sell for upwards of $300 a piece back then.
So this system right here, this cabinet, you know, with whatever games are on it right now, what something like this would bring on today's market?
I really don't know because
Yeah.
it's so obscure. It's not an official product, so it's probably not going to be anything super crazy. If I were to sell this, I'd probably ask something like maybe $1,000. Maybe something along those
'Cause,
lines.
you know, like I sold one in a shop not too long ago that it was a sit-down game. Of course, you know, you can play your regular Pac-Man, or there was $400 games completely loaded with
Yep.
all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
And the guy makes them locally, makes the cabinets
For sure.
easy
And
to
see,
put in the hardware, and they're not $600. You
Yeah.
know, like $800. It
and
depends.
it
but-
comes down to the benefit with something like that is you're buying something new, you're buying something that's going to be reliable, but you're not buying something that's original.
Yeah.
It was never designed to be that way. Those 60-in-1 boards, they have some emulation issues. The LCD screens are nice because they won't break down, and you'll be able to use it. But it doesn't look the same.
Yeah, as a
you know?
collector,
Yeah.
you wouldn't buy something like that to have it. And here, you know, it's
No.
like you want the
I
original
want the old.
stuff.
I want a CRT. I'm
Just-
old. I want a CRT.
Just like
screen.
at the beginning, we talked about, you know, new right here. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
you do have the Godzilla kind of attractive looking game,
Yeah.
but it's not.
It just doesn't have the same appeal to me as
doesn't.
being
Yeah.
the middle-aged man that I am from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
There's a classic, there's a permanence. I just appreciate the engineering that went into these older games, and I do like having a new one to kind of represent the current state of things, because pinball's hugely popular again.
Yeah.
Hugely popular. 10, 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't the case.
Nothing.
And you just really had to, even to find parts was a lot more difficult. Now it's a lot easier. But yeah, this will get sold. I will sell this eventually.
Yeah.
Same thing probably with Demolition Man. High speed, it's not going anywhere.
No, 'cause it's
I'm
so-
keeping that forever.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some that, and it's just gonna go up in value, especially if it's in that kind of condition.
It's difficult
so-
to find that particular game in good condition. A lot of times people have to either put a reproduction playfield or they'll put what's called a hard top on it, which is basically a very durable sticker that goes over an old worn playfield and looks amazing, but it's not original. It doesn't play quite the same. But it's difficult because they weren't used to machines. Pinballs didn't move that fast. Back in
No.
the 70s
No.
and the early 80s, they didn't move that fast. They started putting these ramps on and stronger flippers and things, and it just really tore up the playfield before they started clear coating them in the early 90s. So it's difficult to find an old survivor like that. But got that from a guy in Ohio, drove 14, 15 hours in one day to get it from his house, and it's a keeper.
Yeah.
I just love that game.
Yeah.
Steve Ritchie classic, you know.
Hey, Kelly, thank you so much. This was
problem.
fantastic. Sharing
Absolutely.
the knowledge is
Sure.
unreal. I mean, obviously, I can tell you.
Point at something
You live
and I'll
this,
start
you
going
breathe
on.
these, right? Like you have, like immediately this is the story. I love it. So I'm taking all in myself, and I hope you guys are enjoying this as well too. Will you sell me something out of here? Is there something for sale here?
There's strata here.
There's a lot.
There's stuff underneath
Okay.
all of these machines and in different locations in the house and in the garage. So I think we can work something out.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Love it. So this is for Odyssey, right?
Yep. The original home gaming console. I think.
And it's like almost a real size.
Yeah,
looking,
I mean, this was before you had to have
shotgun,
like
you know?
red tips on things to show that it wasn't a real gun.
Right.
I mean, you know, and it was a light gun. It came with these cartridges. This is sort of a cartridge. This is what the Odyssey used. Basically, it was just a little pinout thing that would change it. But really old, really obscure to have in a box. I think I got it at a thrift store.
The copyright from Magnavox is here from 1972. Mm-hmm. So it is an oldie for sure.
Yep.
And that's probably still one of the first original Pong, you know, black and white.
Well, see, the Odyssey, it wasn't really even a console. Like, it would digitize 2 squares onto your TV screen.
Yep.
And you would take an overlay, a plastic overlay, and stick it to the screen, and that was your game.
That was your game.
Like, oh, you're playing a maze
So
game?
you're
Well, the maze is,
faking on a
yes,
screen.
you could totally just cheat.
Yeah.
There's nothing, very, very little in the way of graphics, but it was pretty cool.
Magnavox inspection card. I'm trying to see if there's a date on this, but I don't see it on here. But man, but this is 1972 copyright. It doesn't mean that this is 1972. It could be a little bit later, but
yeah,
still
the Odyssey wasn't out for long before they came out with the successors. So I imagine it's around from around that time.
What do you think something like that is worth? Any idea?
You know what? I have about as much idea as you.
Let's see.
I haven't looked at that.
I'm kind of curious
in
if we can find something
It's
here.
been a very long time.
This one is 1972, untested. Somebody's selling for 125. Here's one for 149, also 1972. So maybe that date is the correct date. It's not just the copyright for the brochure.
It would have been, because the Odyssey really wasn't a thing for very long.
I don't know what these are. These are the screens probably that you mentioned that you put on.
Those are going to be the overlays. I don't think it probably came with some that are
they're not here
missing.
Yeah. Because it shows 1, 2, 3, 4 of them here. So maybe it came with like 4 of them. Wow, look at this one. Somebody's asking. That's a complete system.
Yes, the Odyssey, very expensive console to purchase complete.
6 games, overlays, asking $900. All right, now let's see if anything's
now
sold.
to the real actual value.
This one, 185. What are you thinking?
Oh man.
So the spread is, look, 120, 139, 200, 185, and that one that has, you know, everything, 300. So spread is pretty big, but
yeah.
And it's a little bit all about the condition as well, too.
Yeah,
you know,
it's not in great shape, but at least it does have the foams and stuff.
Yeah.
And the cartridges manual.
So,
just missing those overlays.
So that one is kind of in a similar kind of condition, the one that we're looking at here.
Yep.
But talk to me.
How about $75?
65, and I'll do it.
70.
Come on.
I know how this works. This is my first day. I think you'll do okay.
All right, let's break the ice. $70.
All right,
Cool. Love it. Thank you.
No problem.
So Kelly, what's in this treasure box?
I don't
this
know.
all 80s, 90s stuff?
This is a bag of Michael Jackson memorabilia. I really don't know. It's got the sunglasses. This is like an action figure with his Thriller
jacket.
Yeah. There's,
and is that a TV guide in there or something?
I think that's a TV guide with him on the cover.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So what year is that? It should be a date here on this, somewhere 16th? So.
No, 2016, no.
No, November,
No.
It's a week, 10 to the 16th.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I was going to say,
it's got to be
what, maybe late 90s, early 2000s? Something like that. There's got to be some dates.
We got Simpsons on already. Well, but the Simpsons just celebrated what? They're 30, 40 years, forever.
Yeah.
I don't think so. It's cool, but I don't think it's my cup of tea.
Yeah, I have no idea on value any of that. Cool little 1911
Winchester,
replica BB gun.
Is that
Toy
Ferrari?
Ferrari.
No.
You know what? It isn't, but I had it up there. When I had more space at one point, I had the car sitting up there, and then I just ran out of room. I think that works.
All right, before we dig in anything, there is treasure here, some. Look at the Sears catalog here from the 80s. Blindly, if I make you an offer for whole bin, not looking at the rest of it, I wonder if you would accept.
Probably not, because I don't know what's in there. I could be giving, I don't know, I wouldn't know what I'd be giving away. Like,
well, we got a game here. It should be somewhere there.
no,
Is something
there's
wrong?
a reason for this.
Okay.
This is an incredibly rare game. This is an incredibly valuable game if it was real.
Ah,
This is not
okay.
real.
So it's a knockoff.
This is a fake that I got at a garage sale somewhere. I won't circulate them. I won't sell them because it's not
I
in it.
worry
There's
all the
nothing
time.
indicated. Yeah.
As stuff shows up that it's like, you know what? I'm not 100% sure. I'm just not gonna even make you an offer. You know.
It's just like
because I've been
watches.
taken many times too.
Yeah. And I don't. If it says reproduction on there, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah, then it's a different story.
But when they're trying to say it's a real, because that game is probably, I don't know, loose, maybe $400, $500.
Really?
Yeah. So and I don't know what's wrong with me. I should just throw it away. It does play, but I don't keep it in the collection because
Yeah, no, it's not real.
it's just
Yeah.
junk. So
Daisy
that's every kid
revolver.
wanted that.
Yep.
Yeah, little BB repeater,
Want to be a cowboy. Portable
little
Pac-Man.
VFD, Terminator 2
What are these,
movie,
playing cards?
movie trading cards
Oh, trading cards.
from the original Terminator 2 movie.
Still sealed.
Yeah.
Kind of curious what that actually brings when it's sealed like that.
I
What do you
don't think
think?
it's a lot.
I think
What are you gonna say?
maybe on my head maybe 50.
I'm guessing
15.
$20.
I'm gonna say $9.99. Ooh, somebody's asking 24, 42, 19.99, 30, brand new, 30 bucks.
You got to look at sealed. Come on now.
Let's see solds. So if we look at solds, not a whole lot of them, only two. One sold for 15, one for 17 bucks. But hey, something,
Yep.
something. Look at that. Wireless Atari, huh?
That's right. You didn't need cords even back then.
I don't think I ever sold one. I don't think I ever had one in my shop.
They're pretty cool.
You just
Yeah,
got,
this
no,
is-
you got
no,
two.
it's a
You got
set.
two. It's a
And
set.
the receiver should be in there probably somewhere. But
Yeah, that's random though.
That's a receiver, right?
No, this-
No, that's part of the system.
this is part of that, I think.
Ah.
Which, if you were lazy and you didn't want to, you had your Atari 2600 games.
You got
didn't
all the
wanna-
games
you
in
just-
and just switch. How about that?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yep. Pretty cool little thing.
Okay, let's keep going. So you still don't want me to make you a blind offer. We are halfway through.
No, because I don't
Okay.
know what's in there. I
Okay.
have no idea. That's PSP
Logitech.
case. Just
Okay,
a case for
just
a
a
PSP.
case.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a
Little Rob the Robot amiibo.
something newer though, kind of. Starfighter,
It's a nice shape.
VHS, 1984. What is this?
Tomy Pocket games.
Ah,
I
Super
kinda-
popular.
I used to
They
play
put out a
lot.
ton of those.
I kind of
Yeah.
like the glue came off.
Yeah, the sign on
that's
there.
cool. Look at that Sears catalog. How about that? What year that is? Who
If
knows?
you look on the front, it'll tell you right
Usually it says like
here.
month.
92 to 93, fall, winter.
So over 30 years now,
Yep.
and they're gone. It's
all
crazy,
over.
right?
It's all over.
Such a giant for
Yep.
so many
This was
years.
the Amazon before Amazon.
Unbelievable. You could buy a house from the catalog, you know, 50
Yeah, a lot
years
of those
ago.
houses are still standing.
Or even longer. I mean, they were just,
And I like to look through the retro game section.
it's a
They got-
sad story,
you know.
to be honest with you, you know. And I live very close to headquarters, which are in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. And there's a bunch of bulldozers running right now, completely demolishing that place.
Maybe an Amazon distribution center or something. They can put.
Who knows? All right, we got some different magazines.
Randomness,
for
Nintendo Powers.
That one's cool because it has like drawings. The Terminator.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's from
Final
the
Fantasy.
screenplay.
Zelda here. So bunch of books. Some of them are collectible. Some of them, you know, guys like this
Some of
stuff.
those guides, yeah, they can get up there depending on the game. A lot of the role-playing games, they get a little sought
Look at
after.
you, got more Sears.
Another Sears catalog.
JCPenney.
Yep.
They're still around, barely holding on, you know.
What is this?
Little LCD game.
The original Terminator.
I don't remember this.
Another one here.
Yep, one of those Tomy Pocket games.
All right, we're almost at the bottom. Who's this? This is
That was episode 1.
Destroyer Droid.
Yep. LCD game came out right around the time of episode 1.
What is this?
I think those are some airsoft guns. BB gun? There might be a pellet pistol in there.
Couple of them.
Yeah, that one is a pellet pistol. That one is an
Spring.
airsoft.
Airsoft.
Yep.
Yeah.
Some of the old Tiger electronic games.
Double Dragon.
Your parents didn't want to buy a Game Boy. They got paid $20, got you one of those.
What is that?
Little LCD TV. That's a.
Oh, that pops up.
It's like a glare shield. I'm not sure how to make it come up, but like this. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, little LCD TV. Of course, analog tuner, so
You can't do anything with
you can't
it.
even bring any channels in. That's the receiver.
Oh,
for
for the
those wireless
joysticks.
controllers.
Yeah.
Yep.
2600 remote control. Yep.
That's old
Oh, I used
Tomy.
to play with this.
You did.
Yep. Completely mechanical.
I think the batteries aren't in here though.
There's another one.
Another one
Sub Chase.
boxed. Yep.
Ninja.
Ninja
What is
Gaiden
that?
2.
I don't know.
You don't
Sonic
know?
the Hedgehog toy pinball.
Oh, that!
I don't know why I have it wrapped in plastic, but we can.
All right, I feel so much nostalgia here overall through all of this. I think I'm kind of glad that I didn't make you an offer on this. There is some money in here though.
It is. It's
Not
just,
huge, but
no, it's just a lot of random. This is probably decent, but I'd probably want to hang on to it. Tell you the truth, it's pretty cool.
do you know what I was gonna tell you for the whole thing if I didn't see it? What do you think?
I guess you would probably say something like $100.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
Because that's what I would do. That's exactly what I would do.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not super familiar with that brand. I'm not.
NHT, good brand.
I heard of them, but I'm
Yep.
like I don't think I ever like played one to listen to one. They look like they're in decent shape.
Yep, the foams,
foams
are
are
still
still
nice,
perfect, yeah.
which is an issue a lot of times.
Yeah, a lot of
It's a well-known brand in the audiophile community. I mean, back in the late '90s, Super Ones were. I mean, they were very well-reviewed speaker, and they still hold up pretty well today. I just had them hooked up a couple months ago. Nice piano white finish, fully working.
And I think this will clean up a couple small thingies
it
on them.
probably should.
You know. What are you thinking on them? I'm not familiar what they would go for. I have no idea.
You'd have to look them up. I want to say eBay, you'd probably be looking at somewhere around 150 for the pair.
Okay.
Something like that. You know, shipping's going to be a big factor
Yeah.
with anything like that.
No, I'll probably first try to move them in a shop. I do
Yep.
okay with the smaller like bookshelf size
Yeah,
speakers.
for sure.
So the tower, like I mentioned to you earlier, I have a hell of a time moving tower ones
know
now.
it.
But the smaller stuff, it does go. So if you would have to let them go, what are you thinking?
I think, I mean, you check it on eBay. I think I'm right. If I'm right, they're around 150. I'd be willing to let them go for 75.
75?
Yeah.
I think that's fair. They're clean. They're good. I'll do 75.
Cool.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with that. What about this stuff? So this is obviously Walmart brand, right?
Yep.
The
Hypertough Heart.
Hard. I mean, I sell quite a few of their drills and things like that from Hard. They show up in a shop all the time. Hyper stuff is always on a little bit cheaper side. You know,
Yep,
I mean,
for sure.
you got what? 5 of these guys. So these are like, go underneath your car or trailer or whatever.
Yep. Clean it out.
Clean it up. You hook up the hose to it and just sprays underneath. Same thing with this, but this is a smaller version. And then we got a couple
Scrubbers.
scrubbers.
Patio or whatever.
Well, you got a hell of a deal on them, you know?
I'm not trying to hide it.
I know. $5 a piece. It is a deal. It is a deal. What would you do on all of them?
I was thinking like $20 a piece.
So that's a couple $100. Oh, I don't think I can do it. I think it's a good number. I think I can get that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you're buying them all, right? So make me an offer.
$100. That's it, and I'll try to double my money. You know.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll do it.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you.
No problem. Annuals. This is a cardboard box. That's those boxes I was talking about.
Yeah.
That's what everybody threw away for TurboGrafx 16. And so it's
And then we have just backs of
trying to get
If
them all.
I would make you an offer, what I'm holding in my hand of these here. Oh, you got more.
Yeah, there's
Oh man.
this is how I got it. He just sent all this stuff to me.
So how many you think you got?
This one's clean.
Because I'm holding
really
1,
don't
2,
know.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm holding 10 different games in here.
11, 12, 13, 14 here.
Or what about
14
you?
Whatever you got
and
there.
I got 10, so it's 24.
Let me take a look here. Because there's one thing.
Took it back.
Hold on.
Took it back.
This one. I can't put that on a lot. That's a pretty rare game. So that card alone, it's speculation, but Metal Morph is a pretty uncommon Super Nintendo game, so that's going to be up there potentially. That could potentially be maybe $100, $150. I don't know. But outside of that one, I would totally let you make me an offer on the rest of these if you wanted to.
So except this particular
Except
one.
that one, yeah. Actually, what we could do is put that one in a single sleeve, probably.
Yeah, swap
and
it
then,
up.
And then, you know.
$100 for the rest?
How many we got here?
Well, we had
What did we say?
24. If we're gonna
So
take one away,
23.
23. Shot in the dark. I don't know. Some of them I might sell for $5.
No,
some of
you're
them maybe I
100%
get
right.
20. I don't know.
You're 100% right. I do 5 a piece. $5 a piece, which is a little more than what you're saying. Not a ton more.
No, it's almost double.
No, it's not almost double. 20 would be 5.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right, because we got
It'd be,
23.
Whatever it is, I'd be $5 a piece, except for that one.
Here, I'll switch it out.
And I think you can easily get $10 to $15 a piece on these, if not more, for some of them, because there are
Okay.
some.
All right, let me chew on that a little
Sure.
bit.
Hold up.
Sure.
Let
me chew on that. Maybe I got something on my back seat that I can barter
You got
with
some.
you.
You got some stuff in the car.
That I can barter with you.
You're holding back on me.
This era.
You got a pinball machine?
This era.
Let's go. Is that in the back of the trailer?
Let me bring it in, okay? I can
Okay.
bring it in by
All right.
myself, so it's not a full pinball machine.
Fair enough.
Okay. So it's not exactly a pinball machine. You got to find a pinball machine.
I know it.
But I thought you would like it.
One of the
There's
first-
a date on it here
Yeah,
somewhere.
86.
86, yeah.
Yep. And it was kind of it was a little bit of a budget game. So they released it and they were selling it to operators, pitching it as kind of like a little bit cheaper option if you didn't want to spend up for the F-14 Tomcat. You could
So
buy
it
one
wasn't
case.
very popular game then, maybe.
Not super popular. It's cool. It's on the lower end of the Williams System 11 era, but it's still a cool game. People sell them.
Okay.
That's neat. I actually have a Firepower back glass that I was going to see if you wanted.
I mean, a lot of people I see if they have extras of these, they just make a nice frame for them. They mat it, they put it on a wall, and it's just a cool display piece,
Definitely.
you know. And they put some different graphics underneath here to display it. Listen, if I sweeten up a deal with this for those, would you do $100?
The problem is I don't have anywhere to put it. Look, you tell me. Oh, I'm sorry. You tell me where I'm.
I see a spot right underneath the stereo
Yeah,
there.
just sit right there. I'll trade you for my Firepower one. You give it a different one in your window because I know exactly where that was.
Yeah.
It's in the window behind your counter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a
For a
mirrored.
while, yeah.
Mirrored. It's glass,
Okay.
so it's a mirrored. It's probably not quite as nice shape, but I think it would look pretty cool, and you might actually get somebody interested in it there.
Well, listen, either way, I brought this here for a reason, you know, to have maybe a little bit bargaining power or
Sure.
not, you know.
It's cool.
If you like it, it's yours either way.
Oh, come on.
No, seriously.
Well, then I'm going to give you the Firepower one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we'll switch.
You can switch it out. And I'd like to see it in your window next
Yeah.
videos, I'll check that out. But thank you very much.
You're very
I
welcome.
appreciate that. It's cool.
You're very welcome.
That's a cool item. I was trying to think if there's anything else interesting in here to show you.
And it's kind of
Actually,
it's
it is.
different. It's a little bit more narrow. So I feel like the whole display behind this was not traditional size like all of these are.
100% correct. Bally put out this sort of special cabinet when they made 8-Ball Deluxe. They had this cabinet that they used in a few of their different games, and it's completely different looking than any of these other ones.
And
So
this
it's a
one
different
is
form factor.
this one is 1983, so it's over 40 years old now.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty cool
Take
too.
that, yeah, take that with you.
This will display it in a shop really nicely. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.
We found the Pepsi sign.
You did.
I did find the Pepsi sign.
So it's actually kind of cool because it's double-sided. So it's designed to be hang on a wall like this, but you actually have a
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
mirrored
like,
copy
I remember
on a
yeah,
back.
I think when I got it, I was like, "That's interesting. That's kind
Yeah.
of different."
So this screams to me like it's a little bit
You can put it on your window.
late 80s, early 90s, 90s.
Yeah, that's the logo makes me think of late
That's
80s.
the logo too, and the cord. Although cord could be changed, but
Plug it in.
there she goes. Takes a minute. It's got that starter in there.
Yeah.
It's got a flicker. Yeah, that's pretty cool. $50. I don't think I can get more than $100 out of this sign. I really can't.
That's really.
You got it.
Okay, awesome, fantastic, love it.
Yep.
Guys, I want to say thank you so much for our first episode on the road. This was a lot of information for you, for me, not for you, of course. Ethan, pleasure meeting you, buddy. Kelly, thank you. Really,
Thank you.
I mean, I'm kind of blown away what you have there. So that was so
Appreciate
cool.
it. This was really great.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. This was fantastic, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.